Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news coming out of Ukraine, Russia, the Middle East, and also from the Koreas. We have a very big news today, and our biggest story is we are seeing yet even more footage of North Korean troops entering Russia to be trained and equipped by the Russian forces to go into Ukraine and fight on the front lines. That is very disturbing news to say the least, and we're also seeing massive crowds in North Korea lining up to volunteer to go fight for Russia in Ukraine, which is also very disturbing. And we're also hearing that NATO, EU, and also South Korea are currently discussing deploying troops inside of Ukraine to fight against the new North Korean threat that is currently occurring inside of Russia. So right now we're seeing escalations all around the world, and even at that we're seeing escalations happen in the Middle East because Israel is saying they've finalized plans to attack Iran in the coming days, or maybe even sooner than that. So there are currently a lot of major stories happening around the world as we speak. But with that, we're jumping into our first article of the day, which goes to War Translated. And in our first article here, this is by far the biggest story of the day, yet even more footage of North Korean soldiers arriving in Russia. And it says right here in the post, here is further evidence of North Korean military presence in Russia's Primorsky Krai region, and Astra geolocated a video showing the alleged arrival of North Korean soldiers at military base 44980, which is part of the 127th Motorized Rifle Division in Sergivka, and the video's narrator, speaking in Yakut, refers to these soldiers as allies and expresses hope that the war will end very soon. So let's take a look at this very disturbing video allegedly showing the North Koreans right here in the video arriving in Russia, and let's see what is actually happening. So right here you can see some guys over here which are apparently the North Korean soldiers in, it looks like in Russian uniforms perhaps, but that is allegedly the North Koreans right there in the video. And as you can see, they're hanging out right here. It looks like they're hanging around a base. The narrator said Koreans. He said yeah, which it confirms these are apparently the North Koreans, and this was filmed by the Russians on camera right here. They appear to be going in and out of this training base office right here. And here you can see another view. It says from North Korea by the narrator, and you can see right over here he says they are allies. So once again, showing that they are here, and he said they're nice lads, which I would have to disagree with that. But he says perhaps the war will end now. So this is very, very bad right here, and muting the video real quick just to discuss it. This is not good whatsoever. We're seeing more and more North Koreans showing up in Russia, indicating this problem is much larger than previously expected, and it looks like North Korean involvement might be growing day by day, which is the worst case scenario for Ukraine and also the worst case scenario for the NATO alliance, because now we have a very big problem on our hands. We have North Koreans arriving daily, which means that either NATO has to step up and counter this threat, or the Ukrainian forces might be overwhelmed in the future due to the large number of North Koreans flooding into Russia. Nonetheless, this is going to be a problem that NATO is going to be dealing with for probably months into the future, and probably some very tough decisions will have to be made as to what's going to be done about this. Is NATO going to deploy forces to respond to it, or are we going to simply sit back and let Ukraine suffer while these forces flood in, and Ukraine is currently having a manpower issue? That will certainly be a big decision we're going to have to make very quickly, but with that, we're jumping into our next article here, and this one goes to Visegrad 24, and we're receiving some very disturbing images coming out of North Korea, allegedly showing pictures showing massive crowds of volunteers enlisting into their military, and North Korea has drummed up a propaganda campaign against the South Koreans in the recent days, while also sending soldiers to Russia for training ahead of their deployment on the front lines in Ukraine. And you can see right here that the crowds appear to be massive, and once again, nothing that the North Koreans do is pretty much of their free will. The country is a total dictatorship, so these people were probably told to show up, so it's not like they're volunteering necessarily. But nonetheless, the people are being rallied up either by force or whatever to show up here and sign up for the military. And as you can see, a very large crowd right here. And also, here's another crowd. It appears to be Kim Jong-un right in the center of it with his security, and all the military acting crazy because they act like God just walked into the room, because Kim Jong-un is a cult of personality. And also, you can see right here that they appear to be signing up on paper. They don't have electronics here, so they're signing up in paper for the military. So once again, a large number of North Koreans being reportedly told to sign up for the military to go fight in Ukraine, and also get ready to prepare to fight against South Korea as well if that war does start here in the future. But not only is that disturbing news, but we also have another post here which goes to War Translated, and we're learning that Russia may pay North Korea for its military participation in the war against Ukraine with a nuclear weapons technology, said South Korea's representative to the UN, according to one of their news agencies. And they said for deploying its units, North Korea will expect generous compensation from Moscow, which could include financial financial, military aid, or even nuclear weapons technology, and he also called on Russia to immediately withdraw all its troops from Ukraine. So remember a while back, we had heard, I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago, that Russia was going to exchange nuclear weapons technology to North Korea in exchange for artillery and maybe even their soldiers as well. And apparently this is confirmation from the South Koreans. That is the arrangement that's currently in place between Putin and Kim Jong-un, and this appears to be a very, very bad situation because North Korea has all the incentive in the world to keep sending soldiers to Russia as Russia requests them in exchange for this very valuable nuclear weapons technology. So this is not good whatsoever, and it appears to be a perfect storm for maybe NATO intervention sometime in the future, like I've said before. But with that, we're jumping into our next article, and this one's going to go to the Kyiv Post. And just when you thought it could not get worse, we're now hearing from the Kyiv Post that North Korea, in addition to the ground troops, which are already on the ground inside of Russia, North Korea wants to now send pilots to operate Russian aircraft in the war against Ukraine. So this is wild. Like the fact that North Korea is willing to send pilots, perhaps, this is according to Newsweek, according to the Kyiv Post, that is even worse. That indicates that North Korea wants to get heavily involved in the war, but yet they can't feed their own people, and they're going to send pilots to a foreign country to fight on behalf of that foreign country. Quite crazy. And it sounds like basically North Korea is operating like a mercenary force on behalf of Russia, which is not good. I can't even say that enough. This is a very bad situation, and it's going to pretty much require a NATO response of some sort. But with that, moving into our next post here, this one also goes to the Kyiv Post. And we're finally seeing South Korea stepping up here once again. They had said that they might supply weapons to Ukraine if North Korea continues their involvement in the Ukraine war. And right now we're seeing that South Korea is considering the possibility of supplying offensive weapons to Ukraine, according to Yonhap, which is a news agency. And they said, quote unquote, if illegal military cooperation between North Korea and Russia continues, then we will act decisively with the international community, said the Deputy National Security Advisor. So once again, I'm not really sure when South Korea is actually going to pull the trigger on this, but if there is a time to start supplying Ukraine with weapons, it would be now, because the North Koreans are going to provide some sort of advantage to Russia that Ukraine currently does not have access to, which is mainly on manpower side of things, and South Korea would be very wise to help out right now. That would be a massive help to Ukraine, and I'm sure the NATO alliance would look very favorably on that if South Korea would start supplying those weapons right now. But with that, we're jumping into our next post, which goes to Apex News, and we're also hearing that South Korea is considering sending a team of personnel to Ukraine to monitor the North Korean troops being deployed to support Russia, a government source also tells Yonhap. And this story is big for several different reasons. First of all, it gives South Korea a perfect opportunity to study North Korean battle tactics on the front lines inside of Russia, which is also something that would be very valuable to South Korean intelligence. And also, on another side of things, it does allow South Korea to help out the Ukrainians, which is of course a very big help. But one risk that this does pose, let's say for example South Korean troops show up inside of Ukraine, and then there's North Korean troops also in Ukraine. If they start firing at each other, could that potentially spark a war on the Korean peninsula, even though they're over fighting in Ukraine? That would be a very interesting and unusual situation to encounter, but that appears to be becoming a real reality here. That could be the case in a couple of weeks, or even sooner than that. So this is very, very intriguing, but also a very tense situation as well. And moving into our next post, we also see here from Nexta that North Korea is calling the news about sending its military to war against Ukraine. They're calling that groundless rumors, and North Korea is denying that 100%, trying to pretend like they have not sent a single troop to Russia, even though we see video evidence of that coming out pretty much every day. But as we all know, the North Koreans lie just as bad as the Russians. But in our next post here, we see that NATO and the EU is taking this very seriously, and apparently, contrary to North Korean claims, it looks like NATO believes that troops are currently in Ukraine from North Korea, and Lithuania's foreign minister is now suggesting sending EU troops to Ukraine in light of North Korean soldiers joining Russian forces. He also emphasized the need to revisit French President Macron's earlier proposal for troop deployment, which had been dismissed by Germany, and also the Lithuanian foreign minister expressed frustration over Europe's passive response and urged for proactive steps to implement necessary actions against the increasing military cooperation between Russia and North Korea. So I strongly agree with the Lithuanian foreign minister. We should strongly consider sending troops to Ukraine to fight this new North Korean threat, and we should not write it off as just simply extremist talk or something like that. That should be a real possibility. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, which also goes to Nexta. So not only is Lithuania's foreign minister suggesting that troops might be deployed inside of Ukraine to actually combat the North Korean threat, but also the French Defense Ministry is now urging the deployment of non-nuclear deterrent forces in Ukraine also, and they say this has to do with maintaining ceasefire guarantees after a peace deal, but I have a strong suspicion this is in direct response to the North Korean involvement involvement inside of Russia and Ukraine. So this is something here which is also suggesting troops being deployed inside of Ukraine. So that discussion is reemerging quite preeminently, and that could be a real possibility in the future, like I've said. But with that, moving away from our story about North Korea's involvement in Russia's war here, we're moving on to our next post, because this actually covers some attacks which have been occurring inside of Ukraine, also Russia, and in the occupied Ukrainian regions. And in this post from the Kyiv Post, we can see here that they humorously said, in what's likely to be a final red line for Medvedev, he said among the targets in last night's Ukrainian drone strikes around Russia were alcohol distilleries. So the alcoholic Medvedev might be having a problem with that. And also a thermal power plant and a rubber factory were also targeted, and the Voronezh, Bryansk, Tambov, Tula, and Nizhny Novgorod regions were also affected as well. So let's take a look at the video and see the extent of the massive Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian territory. So as we can see right here in the video, the drone attacks caused some massive fires here on the premises of several major industrial facilities for Russia. I'm not really sure which one this is on fire out here, but this is from one of the fires, and you see there is a massive blaze out there. So once again, the Ukrainian drones always cause massive destruction on the Russian infrastructure, and they have once again. So there's more proof of that. But with that, we're now moving in here into our next post, which goes to Nexta, and we can also see that a UAV attacked a gas station in Enerhodar, and one employee apparently died on the spot, and the Russian-appointed governor of Zaporizhia said that after the strike, there was an ignition of a tank with propane, and now the rescuers are extinguishing the fire, and the city lost power supply completely. And as you can see right here in the photos, here is the gas station with all the windows blown out, and this is the result of a Ukrainian UAV attack. And as you can see, there's a massive inferno coming out of one of the underground tanks at the gas station, and also significant damage. The Russians were able to put this one out, so it was not one of those like notorious fires that Russia can't get under control, but nonetheless it was very severe, and the entire city lost power supply as a result of this explosion. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, and this one goes to Jason J. Smart. And not only was Ukraine very busy, but also the Russian partisans were very busy as well last night. Apparently the partisans, which are opposed to Putin's regime, set fire to the signal box of a Russian railroad, bringing the chariots of war to a stop near Chelyabinsk in Russia. So let's take a look. And right there you can see there is the rail station box currently on fire, and some people might be thinking, what's so important about a railway station box? Well, that prevents trains from passing through when these get caught on fire like this, and that is a big impact to the movement of logistics around Russia. So believe it or not, this small act of sabotage right here is a big deal when it comes to moving around Russia's war machines. But with that, we're now moving on to our last article of the day, which is going to go to Inside Geopolitics. And we've covered currently our Asia news, our Ukraine news, our Middle East news is coming up right now, and here we have some news from Israeli Channel 13 about the upcoming attack on Iran by Israel, which currently is not taking place. We can see here that cabinet ministers were informed that a very significant attack in Iran will soon take place, and they will not be briefed in advance on its nature, and Israel believes that Iran will respond forcefully to the attack, and apparently Israel is being prepared to enter war with Iran. So to put things simply, we still do not have an exact timeline, and we probably never will, about when this attack will actually occur, but we will be ready to go live instantly when this does eventually happen, because it is imminent. It's just simply a matter of timing, and it sounds like it might be getting closer, but once again, it could be disinformation to throw the Iranians off course, to maybe mess them up with their operations when they're getting ready to defend their territory. So we're really not sure just yet, but I suspect when we start seeing airspace being closed in the Middle East, that'll be the prelude to an attack happening on Iran, and currently we haven't seen that yet, but it's probably going to happen very soon. And with that, that is actually our last piece of news for this video. So we've had a ton of news today, and actually my short war videos kind of turned into a medium range video because there's been so much news to cover. It's actually longer than usual. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and also press the like button, and also subscribe to the channel as well if you want to support our work. And also, if you want to support us financially, you can go over to our Patreon page, where there's a link in the description below on this video, and you can sign up for a monthly membership and help support the channel that way, which is a very big help, of course, because we're largely crowdfunded by the viewers, and it's you, the viewers, that make this all possible. But once again, thank you all for watching. Be sure to join us tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on our nightly war news stream for more coverage of the war in Ukraine, the situation in Asia, and also the Middle East. But with that, thank you all for watching, and bye-bye for now.